You just paid $2 for a double-double. And before that cup was even poured, before the person behind the counter even turned around, your $2 had already been split 5 ways. 5 separate hands, each taking a piece, before the store you're standing in keeps a single cent. And the biggest piece? It doesn't stay in the store. It doesn't even stay in Canada. It ends up in a boardroom in São Paulo, Brazil. I'm going to count all 5 for you, and 2 of them will surprise you. 1 cut that isn't money at all, and 1 that isn't taken from your pocket. It's carved out of the person handing you the cup. Here's the idea to hold on to. At Tim Hortons, the coffee stopped being the product a long time ago. You are the product now. Let's follow the money. There's one thing on the Tim Hortons menu that gives the whole scheme away. You've bought it 1,000 times and never once questioned the price. Keep it in the back of your mind, because in about 90 seconds, it's going to show you in a single number exactly how the money moves. First, the setup. Picture the person who owns your local Tim Hortons. You'd assume they buy their supplies wherever they're cheapest: flour, sugar, cups, the coffee itself. They can't. Head office decides where they buy and sells a lot of it to them directly, at a price head office alone sets. That's the first hand, and it takes its piece before you've said a word at the counter. There's a name for the move: transfer pricing. The parent marks up the things the store is forced to buy and books its profit at the top of the chain. Before a coffee is sold, before a customer walks in, before the store carries any of the risk. The owner isn't a partner. The owner is a captive buyer. They've even alleged they were pushed to buy the basics: sugar, soft drinks, even the bacon, through channels the parent controls at prices above the open market. So, back to that thing on the menu, the donut. When the store is baked from scratch, a donut costs the owner 6 to 9 cents to make. Then the company moved baking to a central factory and shipped the product in frozen. And the price billed to the owner jumped to roughly 18 cents a piece, close to triple. Same donut on your tray, 3 times the cost to the person selling it, and every extra cent flowing straight up. And people noticed. The product wasn't just pricier, it was smaller. A former executive turned store owner named Cyril Garland got suspicious and started putting the frozen donuts on a scale the moment the boxes were opened. His sworn claim: the factory version came in more than 14% smaller than the fresh one. So you were paying the same, getting less, and the owner was paying triple to hand it to you. The coffee went the same way. It once came from an outside roaster called Mother Parker's, until the company cut that supplier loose to keep the margin for itself. That's cut 1, skimmed off the supply chain before you're even at the register. And here's what makes it so easy to hide. Tim Hortons pours roughly 8 of every 10 cups sold at a counter in this country, north of 2 billion cups a year, close to 1 in 6 Canadians through a door on any given day. When you are that dominant, you don't have to earn the next customer. You already own them. So the machine can get worse and richer at the same time. Your loyalty isn't a reward it protects, it's the fuel it burns. The second hand. Every Tim Hortons owner has to pay into a shared pot. Money that's supposed to fund the ads, the billboards, the roll-up-the-rim you grew up with. Fair enough on paper. Except the owners took the company to court, claiming that pot was being raided. That money, earmarked for advertising, was quietly covering corporate overhead, conferences, and head office salaries with nothing to do with selling coffee. They banded together into their own group, the Great White North Franchisee Association, and filed a claim worth roughly $500 million against their own parent company. Sit with that. Store owners so squeezed, they sued the brand whose sign hangs over their own front door. On top of that fund sit the ordinary royalties, a fixed percentage of every sale, taken off the top in the good months and the bad. That's cut too. And the store you're standing in still hasn't kept a cent of your money. Here's where it turns ugly, because this hand reaches past you into someone with even less room to move. The owner is trapped in a vice. They can't raise the price of your double-double, the brand sets that. And they can't shop for cheaper supplies. Head office locked that down. Costs climb, the price is frozen, the parent's cut stays fixed no matter what. So when something has to give, there is exactly one lever left: labor. And on paper, labor sounds abstract. So here's exactly what that squeeze looked like on a single winter morning in one Ontario town. January 2018. Ontario raises the minimum wage. A Tim Hortons in Cobourg, Ontario, hands its staff a letter. Paid breaks, gone. A 9-hour shift now paid as 8 hours and 20 minutes. Newer workers told to start covering most of their own health and dental costs. And here is the detail that should stop you cold. That store wasn't run by some faceless corporation overseas. It was owned by the son and the daughter of the two men who founded Tim Hortons. The founders' own children, clawing back the breaks of the people pouring your coffee because the money flow stacked above them left no room to move. The backlash was instant. A No Timmy's Tuesday boycott trended nationwide, and for the first time, that red cup made people wince instead of smile. So cut 3 isn't taken from your pocket. It's carved out of the 15-minute break of the person who just handed you the cup. We've followed your money through 3 hands, and the store still hasn't won. Now the strangest cut of all, because a journalist found out exactly how much this company was willing to take, and it had nothing to do with dollars. He asked for his own data. What came back made him realize he'd been carrying a tracking device in his pocket for years, and he'd paid for it himself. In 2020, that journalist requested the data the Tim Hortons app had collected on him. It was a map of his life. The app had logged his location more than 2,700 times in under 5 months, not while he was ordering, but constantly, sitting untouched in his pocket, long after he'd closed the thing entirely. Worse, it was built to notice the exact moment you stepped into a rival, a Starbucks, a second cup, even a McDonald's, so it could flag when you were buying your coffee somewhere else. 4 privacy regulators ruled the company had broken the law. The compensation for the millions it had tracked? A single free coffee and a baked good. And to be fair, collecting data isn't the crime by itself. Canadian Tire's Triangle card does it out in the open. You trade your habits, you get points back. Everyone knows the deal. What crossed the line here was doing it in secret and weaponizing it to clock where you went the moment you walked out the door. And they'd trained you to hand the data over yourself. Remember Roll Up the Rim, the paper tab you peeled on the cup for decades? In 2020, they moved the whole game into the app. The contest didn't change. The point of it did. A paper game that once cost them a few free donuts now bought your account, your habits, your movements. Every roll another data point. The prize was never the coffee. The prize was you. That's cut 4. So here's where we are. Your $2 has been sliced 4 ways: supply, advertising, a worker's break, and your own privacy. The store owner kept nothing. You kept nothing. And we still haven't reached the hand that owns the machine itself. In 2014, Tim Hortons was folded into a company called Restaurant Brands International, controlled by a private equity firm out of São Paulo, Brazil, called 3G Capital. They run every business they touch the same way: zero-based budgeting. Every year, every cost is knocked back to zero and has to earn its place all over again, or it's gone. It shaves a company to the bone and pools the margin at the top. We know where that ends, because the same firm ran the same playbook on a global food giant, Kraft Heinz. In 2019, Kraft Heinz wrote down around $15 billion in a single quarter. Its famous brands hollowed out until the market admitted they were worth far less than the spreadsheet claimed. This isn't a one-off, it's a repeatable playbook, and it's the machine sitting on top of your coffee. And the deal itself was engineered to move money in one direction: out. The 2014 merger was structured as a tax inversion. The new parent parked in Canada largely to shrink the tax bill on a business that was, by the numbers, mostly American. The flag on the paperwork stayed red. The logic underneath pointed south. You can measure the fall by looking across the parking lot. In the same years, McDonald's Canada quietly rebuilt its coffee and took a chunk of the market Tim's used to own outright, while Tim Hortons spent those years in court against its own franchisees. When the coffee stopped growing fast enough, the menu ballooned. Burgers, wraps, and, absurdly, flatbread pizza in a drive-thru built to move a car every 20 seconds. When that failed, they rented a pop star and put Justin Bieber's name on a box of Timbits. None of it was about a better cup. It was a machine reaching for the next dollar any way it could. And if you think the squeeze is history, it isn't. In 2024, a group of Quebec franchisees sued, claiming the company's terms had cost them nearly $19 million in lost profit across 44 restaurants in 3 years. The cuts are still landing. That's cut 5, the biggest one, flowing out of your town, out of the province, out of the country, into a boardroom that has never poured a coffee in its life. Now here's the part that kept nagging at me. Every mechanic I just walked you through, the captive supply chain, the rated ad fund, the labor squeeze, the data harvest, the offshore routing, none of it is unique to Tim Hortons. It's a playbook. Buy a brand people love, lock the owners in, skim every layer, harvest the data, route the margin offshore, and let the nostalgia keep everyone walking in the door as if nothing changed. Tim Hortons isn't a tragedy, it's a template. And there are Canadian brands you still trust being fed through the exact same machine right now. It wasn't always this way. The man who built Tim Hortons lived by one rule he wrote down. The store owner was the #1 customer. Head office existed to serve the person behind the counter, not to drain them. That rule is what made the place feel like it belonged to us. Somewhere between that handshake and that Brazilian boardroom, the rule got turned inside out. You stopped being someone the company serves. You became a revenue line it collects. So the next time that cup lands in your hand and you tap confirm, count the 5 hands with me. 1 to the supply markup, 2 to the ad fund, 3 carved out of a worker's break, 4 your own location handed to a tracking firm, and the 5th and biggest, boarding a one-way flight to São Paulo. Follow it all the way down and the store that actually made your coffee, the people who took your order, are left with just a few cents of the whole $2. That is the real receipt, the one they never print. So, let me hand it to you. Which of the 5 bothers you most? The markup you never see? The worker who ate the cut? The app that watched you? Or the fact that the money just leaves the country? And be honest about the hard one. Knowing all 5, do you still pull into that drive-thru tomorrow morning? Tell me the exact moment Tim's stopped feeling like yours. The order, the year, the change you couldn't unsee. Drop it below. I read every one. And soon, we follow the money through another Canadian name you grew up trusting. One whose entire business turned out to be a machine built to get paid whether you loved it or not. Until then, stay sharp.